The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey, welcome everybody. Happy Friday. Thanks for joining for our workshop session. This is a Build It Now with Infowise workshop session. I'm Will Cooper, and I'm the Infowise training coordinator. So what we're going to be doing today is building an approval system using Infowise, and I'll be doing this in SharePoint Online. We've got 2 hours blocked out. We'll probably use most, if not all of that. Our goal here is to start from nothing and see how far we can go in terms of building an approval system. There's a lot of different ways you can approach this, a lot of features and functionality you might add. So my hope is in this process, you'll get some ideas on things you could do in your organization. In my past, in terms of working with various customers, I've been asked to do a lot of different types of approval systems, and they can get a little bit tricky, but I've picked up some ideas, and hopefully I can share some of that with you today. Just to give you some ground rules, just because of the amount of people attending and in the interest of keeping things moving quickly, if you do have questions or things that you want discussed or suggestions, stuff like that, just use the GoToWebinar interface. So in that right panel, you'll notice there is the option to ask questions, make comments, and that kind of thing. And that's the way you can interact with us. I do have other team members with Infowise on, and they're going to kind of try to answer your questions as well. So that's it for intros. I want to really dive right in and get started. So what you're looking at right now is something that we're all too familiar with. It's just a blank SharePoint team site. I have done nothing ahead of time except I just added the Infowise app to the site. So as promised, we are starting from scratch just so you can see every step along the way. So I've got the Infowise Ultimate Forms app added. And by the way, any of the things that I do in this session today can be done for on-premise SharePoint as well. There's really no difference. All the features and functionality for Ultimate Forms is available in both types of SharePoint, so no problems there. So as is always the case when building tools, you have to start with a list. It is my preference to set up a site for a tool like this, just because I can kind of keep everything nicely encapsulated that way. For my approval system, the general concept is around like approvals for spending. Like if you want to buy something for the business and you need approval to do that, that's the general concept that I'm shooting for. I'm going to use two lists. I'm going to have a master list, which I'm going to refer to as approvals. And then I'm going to do a child list, which I'm going to call lines. And these are to describe requested expenditures. So you'll kind of see how that works in a second. So very first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and get these custom lists set up. So I got to do this grunt work first, so to speak. So first list is approvals. And then I'll go ahead and make the second list right away before I add any fields. Second list, I'm just going to call lines. Okay. And I'm going to use the Infowise associated items. Hopefully most of you guys on our session today are familiar with that. That functionality is used over and over again in all kinds of solutions you build with Infowise. So just so I don't forget to do this later, the first thing I want to do is set up this list so that I can use that associated items functionality. In order to do that, I do need to allow management of content types. So I'm going in there. I'm going to flip that flag, and then I can go ahead and change the content type to use associated items. So I'm going to get rid of the default SharePoint content type, which is simply item, delete, and OK. and then I can go in and add and put in my Infowise one. This is so that I can get that many-to-one relationship in the form, which we'll see in a little bit. So I just come down here, pick Infowise. There's two types, so just pick the first one. And now I'm set up so that when I go to my parent list, I'll be able to pick this list for that field. Okay, so this line items list is going to be super, super simple. I mean, basically, it's just going to be a description of an item. I'm going to maybe have a category associated with it and then a dollar amount. And that's really all that I need for this. So I'm going to put, let's say, item, just changing the title field. That would be required. And then I'm going to give it a category, or no, I'll say type. This is going to be a choice field. I might use color choice later for this, but in any case, I'll start with choice field, and I'm just going to kind of come up with some options here. So we'll say contractor, office supplies, software, hardware, other. Okay, so I could change this anytime. It's just kind of an arbitrary, but oh, whoops. Hold on. There we go. Okay, there's my drop down. Okay, I don't want a default. I do want it required. Get rid of that. It can be in the default view. That's fine. Oh, it doesn't want. This is a reserved term in SharePoint, so I can't say type. I'll just say category. It's the same concept. Okay. All right. Item, category, and we need the dollar amount, right? Okay, that's going to be required. Just put amount. I'm going to pick currency, and that's required. We'll do 2 decimal places for that, and that can be default view. That's it. That's all I need for my child list. It's just simple line items to describe expenditures, and that's the nature of this approval system. Is somebody wants to spend some money and they need to get approval from the higher ups in the business. Okay, so let me go back to the other list. We've got lots of fields we got to do for that one because that's kind of like our main master record. So I'm going to go into the list settings and all kinds of things that I want to do. Okay, so for the title field, this is a really, really common thing I do in just about all the tools I make. I will want Infowise to create an ID for records. It's just a really handy reference point. And there's really no downside ever to using this. So I'm going to call this approval ID. I need to set this not required because it's not going to be it's not going to be a user entered field. I'm going to set Infowise to come up with IDs for me on that field. So I almost always do that in tools that I create. There's no reason not to. And now I'm just going to go through. So I'm going to try to talk to you about why I'm creating the fields I'm creating, but some of this is going to make more sense the further I get along in the process, especially the point once I've actually added this into our tabbed form, but I'll try to give you a little bit of idea of the purpose for these fields as I'm adding them. Okay, so it's an approval system, right? The way I'm setting this up, there's in general concept, there's kind of two kinds of approval. You could have concurrent or sequential. In many cases, you're going to want to do sequential approval. Concurrent would mean that sort of anybody on the approval list can approve at any time. But in my experience, normally it's more like, one person approves and then it moves its way up the food chain. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a sequential approval system. Concept I'm shooting for is 3 approvers. Obviously, that can vary. Your situation, you have more. But what you should see, based on what we're building today, is a design pattern. And based on the pattern I'm showing, it shouldn't be difficult for you to see how you would expand this. And it could really, be to whatever you want. It could be 6 approvers or 10 approvers, whatever your business requirements may be. Okay, so if I have an approval system, I know I'm going to need to put some people picker fields in. So we'll do that first. So we got approver 1, that's people picker. We're always going to have approvers, but it could be that they are sort of gradually filling in data. So I'm going to be nice. I'm not going to require this right at the start. I'll mark that not required. They could just sort of fill it in before they begin approval. And we want to show that on the list view dashboard. So I'll leave that checked. And then approver 2, approver 3. So let me go ahead and add those. So at this stage, I'm not doing any fancy Infowise stuff, but I most certainly will be using that as we get further along. Right now, I'm just defining fields to capture the data. That's all that I need to do right now. Okay, approver 2, people picker, not required. Same pattern as the last field I just added. All right, there it goes. Approver 3. Okay, person, not required. Okay, so those are going to be the names of from 1 to 3 approvers. You'll see how this works. So I'm going to have the system set up so that you can dynamically choose that. As you all know, depending on what's being approved, it may or may not be necessary to have more people. You could kind of build that. You could wire that into your system, say based on like a total dollar amount or something like that. This is fine tuning you can do depending on how custom you want to get with your system. But you see the concept. Your amount of approvers might change depending on what needs to be approved. You could have a dynamic form. Okay, so there's the approvers. Okay, naturally we have a requester, right? This person who wants that money. They want to spend the money. So I'm just going to make another people picker field for that. Basically it's whoever starts the form out, right? So I'll put person for that. Now that one's going to be required. You should know that immediately, so may as well go ahead and set that required. I'm going to want that to default to whoever creates the form. We'll do that with Infowise settings later. Let's see. Okay, all right, we already did approval ID. Okay. Now, next thing I'm going to do is summary and detail. So what I'm looking for here is single line text, which just describes in short description what this is for, and then we're going to have a like multi-line text, which has lots more detail. Okay, so I'm going to start with summary, single line text. It is required. Just a short description of what this approval is for. Okay, that'll show on the dashboard. And then immediately following that in the form, we're going to have details. And this is, if they have a long description of what it is that they're doing, they can include that. So that's multi-line text. I'll require it. We'll let that be rich text. That's fine. I don't want that in the default view. That would make for a very stretched out dashboard. That would look terrible. Okay, next one. Let's see, summary, details. Okay, I'm going to make a field called purpose for just like a general sort of categorization of what this is all about. Okay, so this is another choice field. This would be one where I'm probably going to convert it to color choice here in a little bit. And it's just to kind of put it in buckets, if you will. You may want to do some reporting off that type of thing. So that's the idea of purpose. So I'm going to put some options here, say addition, repair, replacement, expansion, cost reduction. These are general concepts. I mean, you could apply this to anything. So whatever options you would want or apply to your business, just choose what you want. We just want to put some things in here to kind of flesh out our concept a little bit. Okay, so this is required. It's drop down. Once again, I don't want it to default. I'll make sure they pick that option. Yeah, we'll show it in the default view for now. Okay, there's purpose. We're going to use attachments. I think we have that turned on by default in our list, so that's fine. We'll include it in the form. You'll see that later. Department. Yeah, let's put a department choice. That's another way you might want to divide these up. There could be business rules connected to that. I might auto-populate the approvers based on that. Likely an approval system, you're going to want this information. So I'll do a simple choice field for that. Also required. And for this one, my departments are going to be, let's see, HR. Here, I'll put them in alphabetical order. Accounting, HR. What else do I want to do? Sales, warehouse. What else? Corporate, IT. Okay, that's good enough. All right, let's do another. Sometimes it's good to have a catch-all in case you forgot something. Okay, I will require that. No default there. I'm not going to put everything in the default view. It's going to start to get too full. Okay, there's department. Okay, simple concept there. Okay, so that's all stuff that's going to go on my first tab. I'm going to make a tab called definition. I'm going to throw all those kind of defining fields. The general information about the approval is going to go in that section. Now we're getting into the line items, okay? So that's going to be an Infowise associated items field. And also I'm going to have a total related to that. So I'm going to bounce out of the screen for a second. I'm going to come back later, but I want to actually go into Infowise settings, and that's where I need to create that type of field. So I just coded my magic puzzle pieces icon, and I can go ahead and set that up. I'll rate it later. Okay, let's see. I'm going into columns, and I'm going to make this associated items field and connect to my other list. So I'm just going to call it lines. Simple enough. And yeah. No, I won't require because maybe they don't have it initially when they save the form. Okay, so notice that it automatically sees my child list. That's because I changed the content type, so this tool automatically recognizes that. So I didn't even have to change any kind of setting. In fact, I should really need to do nothing other than just create the field, and then it will become available in my form. So I can just click create. Now, I need another thing related to this. What I want is a roll-up total from those line items. So I need something called associated item summary, which is right below that. So I can get kind of calculation, because the idea is I might have several different items that roll up into a grand total. That's what I'm trying to create. So I'm going to call it lines total. I'm looking in the associated items list, and it's the amount column, not count. That would be the number of line items. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for the sum total of those dollar amounts. So that's all I got to do. I can just click create, and it'll give me a little confirmation dialog when I finish these things completed successfully. So I know it made the field. I'm going to see it up in the drop down too. So that's good. Okay, so that's going to go in the lines tab. That takes care of those two fields. All right, now we're getting to the meat of it. Approvals. This is going to be the main screen that shows the sequential approval process that we want to set up. So I need to make some more fields related to that. Okay, a lot of tools I like to create something which I'll call workflow action or something action or just action, something where it's basically a user-facing button or drop down or something where the user is going to interact with the form to trigger changes in the system, so that it's an interactive system. So rather than sort of the plain vanilla concept of a SharePoint form where you just sort of fill out some information and then you're done, This is going to drive the approval process and drive other processes related to that. So really sort of any type of thing that I can think of that I want the user to trigger in that process, I would put as an option in this list. So this is going to reset every time, or that's what I'm going to make it do. But again, this is a trigger. This is a way to capture a trigger from the user. So the different things that I want the user to do. Let's see. This is going to be required. Now, I need a none option. The idea is not every single time they're going to open the form are they going to choose something in this list. I'm simply going to respond to it by way of actions, which we'll do later, if it's anything other than none. Okay, so here's some of the things that I know we'll need to be able to do. When you first create this record, you don't necessarily start the approval process immediately. So it's initially in a draft state, and I want this concept where the user can select the option to begin approval. Another thing I would like them to be able to do is basically kill the whole thing by selecting reject. We're going to have them do some other things like give their reason for doing that. But that's one of the actions that may need to take place. Cancel, if just for some reason this approval process doesn't need to happen. This is preferred over just simply deleting the SharePoint record because we may want that history for some reason. So we might like users to just cancel it as opposed to deleting the SharePoint record, in which case I would have no history that this ever took place. Complete. That'd be another thing that I'd like to do. I'll add some other things in here. This would be to email approvers to sort of poke them, if you will, in case they haven't done their approval and you want to trigger an email. So I'm going to do these other ones too. I'm going to say request approval 2, request approval 3. Now, as I'm going through this, you may start to have questions or look at this and say, why am I doing this? Why are you doing that? There are so many ways that you could build an approval system. And by no means is my example intended to be shown as best practice for an approval system. I think you could make 100 different types of ways to do this approval system. So what I hope you can take out of this is bits and pieces which you can use in yours and then combine it with your own processes. One cool thing with Infowise is there's so many different kinds of things you could do. It's a tool set that opens up a lot of possibilities. So some of this may be unusual or different than what you're used to doing with your approval system, but it's valid as long as it meets the business requirements. So that's really the key factor. Okay, so we've got this, it's required. I don't want that in the default view. We turn that off. That's going to be a key one on the approval section. Okay, I mentioned that if they do reject for some reason, we want some information from them. So I need a field for that. So I'm going to do rejected reason. Okay. We'll do multi-line text. Sure, why not? It's not required. It will be required if they pick that drop down. We'll do that with the Infowise settings. We'll do enhanced rich text, and I don't want that in the default view, no. Okay, this will be something we'll use in that approval section of our form. Okay, approvers needed. Okay, so I want an approval system based around the concept that you may need 1 or 2 or 3 approvers. In your world, you may say, well, I needed to do more than that. But like I say, you should be able to look at this system and see exactly how you would expand it if that's what you want to do. So I'm going to say approvers needed, and I'll give them 1, 2, or 3. You need at least 1 approver, right? So here we go. 1, 2, 3, just like that. What will happen is we're going to set up our form so that it changes according to what you pick on that option. Okay, so by default, it can be 1, that's fine. Again, don't need that default view. Okay. All right, what is status? I started talking about status a second ago. So inevitably connected with the workflow action, you have the concept that there's a process involved here, right? You first create the record. In my mind, I think of that as draft. Okay, you're working on it, you're defining information, but it's not yet ready for an approval process. So one status will be draft. Once it begins that process, it's an approval. We already said that it might be rejected or canceled or complete. So I need a status to capture this. Now, I'm going to set it up as choice column. And in fact, I'll change it to color choice in a little bit. But this is key because I'm going to use that information to help control how the form works. Just as an example, can you see that there'd be a problem if you allow the user to make updates to those amounts or spending in the middle or even at the end of the approval process? That would be really bad, right? I can cheat the system. I could wait till the approvals are all in and then I could go make my approval for $100 be $1,000. Well, using the status field, I could do things like security control that field to make it where it's not possible to change that once the status changed. So this is a really critical core concept in this system, this status indicator. Okay, so same thing, I'm defining this myself. So I'm going to say it can be draft, approval, complete, rejected, or canceled. And you may be able to think of something else, but this should cover us coming out of the gate. By default, it's draft, right? That's how we want to start when they do the new form. This is important. I do want it in the default view. I don't need to set a require because our system is going to handle these status changes. You'll see how that works a little bit later. Let's see. Okay, so there's status. That's an important one. Okay. If you're using an approval system, you probably might like to know who is the next approver. Who's next, right? Who's holding the ball? We are going to want to do some things to make sure that our system shows that. Okay, I'm going to just make it text field because it doesn't really matter. I just need their name. I don't need this to be people picker because our system is just going to record whoever that is based on changes during the process. Okay. That one I probably would like to show on the dashboard. We're going to wire up all this functionality. Right now, I just need all these fields to capture and track all of this data. All right, so how are they going to do approvals? Now, this is an interesting one. I'm sure for most of you, you have spent time using the Infowise signature field, and I'm actually not going to do it in the system. It doesn't mean that you couldn't do it as part of the system. I'm just showing you an alternative approach. So don't gasp when I do what I'm getting ready to do, which is showing you another way that somebody can submit approvals. The way I'm going to make my system work is I'm going to do some security control, and I'm going to have a simple checkbox, if you will. But the thing about it is I'm going to have logging, and I'm going to use security controls to ensure that the only person who can check that box is the person who is that current approver. And that's it. They're the only person who can do it. And additionally, I'm going to log when they make that approval. So I have other checks in my system to make sure that's correct. So I need fields in the form for the user to be able to do that. I'm going to call this APPR1, and this is the approval 1. And I'm going to do something kind of funky here. I'm going to make it a choice column with one choice, which is yes. But by default, it will have nothing. And this is going to look weird to you, but you'll see how it's going to work a little bit. Okay, not required. It's just something that will be filled out whenever we get to that part in the process. I'm I'm not going to show that default view. I'm going to make 3 of these. I want one for approver 1, 2, then 3. Okay. So I need another choice. 1 sec. Okay, approver 2, choice. There are so many ways you could do this. Generally, I'm always shooting for kind of the simplest, cleanest approach. And then if things get more complicated later, you do what you have to do. But especially coming out of the box with an approval system, the simplest way you can accommodate the business requirements is best because that's easiest to change, easier to maintain, that kind of thing. So it's a red flag to me if you start getting really complicated coming right out of the gate building one of these systems. That is a risk because you may be building a system that's going to become extremely difficult to maintain or modify. So the simpler you can build your system, the better off you're going to be. All right, no default. Need one more of these. Approver 3, approval 3, not approver 3, approval 3. All right, one more. Okay, same as the other one. I suppose I could have done this with the checkbox, but this is going to work fine. You'll see. Okay. No default. Okay, so that's how our approvers are going to give their approval. Doesn't get much easier than that, right? So that's those fields. We're going to want a progress indicator, and we're going to need some calculated fields to get some things. One thing I need is the approvers needed. It's showing 1, 2, 3. Those are treated as text values. I need to reference that as a number, so I need at least one of those. Okay, so I'm going to do calc approvers needed, just so I can get that as an integer. Okay, so you'll see why I need this, because I need this as part of this progress bar indicator that I want to have on my dashboard. So this is the easiest formula you'll ever see. It's just going to convert that for me. Okay, number, 0 decimal places. No, I don't want a default view. Okay. Okay, what else do I need? We'll probably come back to some of that later. I don't want to get too into the calculated fields just yet. I want to really start building my form as soon as I can, because that's going to make this all kind of click and make sense more quickly. One thing I do need is an additional section for tracking, right? If you're doing an approval process, especially if it's for a lot of money, people are going to want to see all the details about who gave those approvals, when they gave them. You need all that kind of tracking and history to kind of make it all official. So I am going to have a history section. I'm going to do 2 different things in there. I'm going to have a field to track status changes to this approval, and also I'm going to have a field for tracking the history of the approval. So I'm going to log every time somebody makes an approval in the system. So these are, again, going to be updated by our system, but I need a container to get that information. So I'm going to have a field called, well, I'll say status history. Why not? Well, I'm just going to call it history. Okay, multi-line text, not required, and I'm going to do enhanced rich text. That'll be a container for that, not in the default view. Okay, history. And then I'm going to do another field called approvals. And both of these fields I'm using to do some custom logging using Infowise actions. Okay, so approvals, multi-line text, not required. Okay, I would hope that you're starting to get bored with watching me create fields in SharePoint lists. All of us have done that a lot. So Now we're going to start to get to where the fun part. We're actually going to start building out our form. So I can go into the Infowise settings. Pretty much we have most of the fields that we now need in our system. I'm probably going to add in a few that I need for various purposes later, but most of the fields are now created. So that's good. We can go on to the next phase. All right. Always the same thing. I just go to my list tab and click on the puzzle piece icon. And what's the first thing you pretty much always have to do after you create your fields? It always kind of tells you, there's really no way around it. This is kind of the sequence of building. I always want to do my tabs next. Okay, so my form, it's going to have 4 sections. Okay, so I'm going to have one called definition. Okay, then we'll do one for lines, for the line items. We'll do one for approval and one for history. And then I just need to get all my fields in there. Okay, so, all right, let's just walk through. We've got lots of fields. Okay, approval. I don't need any of the approval stuff in there. Approvers needed. Attachments. Attachments, I'm going to show in the definition form. It won't show up until, after you add those when you get to the edit form. Department's going to be in there. Details, of course. History, that's in the other tab. Lines goes in the lines tab. Next approver, that's approval. Purpose, put that in there. See, requester, yeah, we're gonna have that in the first tab. Status is gonna go in another tab. I think that's most of what we need in the definition tab. Okay. Status. Oh, no. I need summary. Okay. Summary goes above details. Okay, I think that covers it pretty well. Make sure I'm putting the requester where I want to put the requester. Yeah, I think I want to do it like that. Okay, that's the definition tab. Lines is easy, right? I only need 2 things there, lines and lines total. That's simple. History is simple. I only have 2 things on that tab, history and approvals. That's a log of the approvals as they take place. And then everything else is for the approval section. Okay, in the approval section, I'm going to lay this out a little different. I'm going to do a 2-column layout for this. It'll just look a little bit nicer. So I'm going to do approval action. That's going to be the first thing. And then we want to see the status in this section. So I'll make that the next field. And then approvers needed. Okay. And then I want to show the next approver because that's going to be nice information to have. And then the actual approvers themselves. So it's going to go approver 1, and then they're going to have their little option to check the box. Then approver 2, their box, and then approver 3. Okay, so just go, because I'm doing 2 columns, so it'll just kind of fit nicely in the lines. And if they do reject, the rejected reason, I'm going to show at the bottom of that section. Okay, so that's everything we need for that for now. I'm going to save that off. All right, just got to wait for that confirmation. All right, good, we're good to go. Now, as long as I'm at it, I might as well add a tab section for the line items. If you're doing these, I really recommend to just always use the tab settings, even if you only have a few fields. It just makes for a consistent user experience. There's no downside to doing that. You don't have to, but if you want to use any of the tab configuration settings, you need to have that turned on. So I am going to go into this list and do a single tab for lines. So good habit. If you don't already do this, I recommend doing this. Say line item, and then This one's easy, right? Item, category, amount. That's all I need. Okay. And at long last, I should be able to see a form soon, and then we can kind of start doing more kind of like tweaking, if you will, doing like incremental changes where we can actually see everything we've been doing so far is kind of in the blind. That's not a great building process. Now I've cheated a little bit and then I kind of have a system in mind, but normally what you want to do is kind of build as you go. You want to be able to see that tab form as soon as possible. Let's do some other stuff. Let's get rid of this atrocious default content on the home page and let's set something up there. I'm going to use the one column text layout because that's all I ever do, and get rid of all that. And I want to put in my own banner image. Let's make it look nice. Okay. So I've got, let me find it. Here we go. Load that up. Not going to fill out any of this other ridiculous information that SharePoint asks you for. Boom, there's the banner. Give it a border. I don't need any of that. Whoops. What else do I need? I need my approvals list. I'm probably going to end up changing this later, but that's fine. I'll just insert something for a placeholder for now. So we'll do web part, and we want approvals. There it is. It's already highlighted. Just kind of fleshing things out. It's good to have a placeholder. It just kind of gets things going. We're just getting the ball rolling. This list view is going to look totally different. We'll want it to later, but that's fine for now. Those are just kind of like some binders on a shelf. All right, let's go to the form finally. All right. See how things are looking so far. Okay, there's my 4 sections. That's correct. That's how we want it to be. So one thing I noticed right away, requester, I really want that to default to the current user. So I may as well go ahead and do that right away because it's easy. So I'm going back to my approvals. I'm kind of using 2 tabs here. This is a good building practice, so you don't have to keep going all the way in, all the way out, all the way in, all the way out. And then you can just refresh your form page. So that's why I have 2 forms open right now. By the way, if you guys have any questions or comments, just go ahead and put them into the chat. I think somebody has. I have a lot of content to get through, but like I say, I have other team members that can kind of address those. But we're certainly interested in your interaction and feedback. So I want a default, right? So I'm going to go to default values. Where else? We want the requester to be the current user, right? One of the easiest things you could do. All right, requester, dynamic role. Is there a function for current user? Of course there is. There it is, right there. Square brackets, current user. Now, we just need that to happen in the new form. Now, it doesn't have to be the current user. It's just normally that would be the case. So that can be overridden if needed. So I just add that and save. Once it comes out to the Infowise settings hub, then it's saved in the system and I can test it. So I'll do new item again. Boom, there's my name. That's what we want. Okay. So let's look through here before I even fill anything else and, make sure nothing's, looking really crazy, anything like that. Oh, I forgot to do the 2-column layout for approval. And history and approvals, those should be read only. So let's take care of those 2 things. History and approvals, read only. Next approver, that should be read only too. Yep, that one. Okay, so we need to apply some of those settings. Let's go back to tabs, tab permissions, and go to approval. And I need to edit this tab settings, and this one will use 2 columns. Update. Okay, that's it for that screen. And I need to do column permissions. I need to make some of those fields read only. I had multiple ones I need to set up like that. Status is one of the ones that should be read only because our system is going to define that. The user will not change the status, not directly. They'll use workflow action to do that. All right, so that's read. Add that. I always use this apply permissions dynamically. That's because we want the form to change real time based on settings in the form. So pretty much can't really think of a case where I haven't wanted to use that setting. So generally just make sure you always turn that on right at the start. Status, history, that's read only. I actually don't want to show the history section on new, so I need to make it deny for new. So kind of do something special for that. So deny on new and then read on edit and view. Same thing for approvals. That's in the same section. Deny on new. And then make it readable on edit and view. Okay. And then I said next approver. That's defined by the system. So that's just read only. Okay, that should help. So we just apply our settings and then see I've got two tabs going. I can kind of just bounce back and forth. That way I can do Control F5 here and reset my form and check. Okay, did you notice some? History's gone now. That's exactly what I want. Why in the world would you show history on the new form? You wouldn't. That's ridiculous. So you want to tailor the form experience based on where you are in the process, right? All right, let's look at approval. Bam, two-column layout. Looking pretty good already. We have our approval action. Status is now read-only. Next approver is read-only. Okay, now we want to do some kind of fancy stuff with this section. Now, if you have one approver, I don't want to see approver 2 and approver 3. So we want to have kind of this accordion functionality where those sections expand out depending on what you choose. Another one, the only time rejected reason should show is if approval action is reject. Okay, so I need to hide that unless we have that condition. So that's kind of the next part we're going to work on. Okay, so I need to do that with advanced column permissions. Okay, so I'm going to find reject reason. And what I want to say is to deny when workflow action or approval action, sorry, equals, what was it, reject? Approval action not equals reject. I want this to be hidden. Okay, and then I make a second rule, which I'm going to say it's writable when approval action equals reject. Okay, I always want to check these settings right away because it's easy to get tripped up on this. You know, don't just assume that you're doing all this stuff correctly right away. You know, get a confirmation that it does what you think it was going to do. So now that I've applied the settings, I want to reset my form and see if that reject reason is doing what I think it will do. Okay, so I don't see it right now, which is what I want because we didn't reject. Now it shows if I change to that. Okay, that's how I want it to work. Okay, same type of thing I want to do with the approver section. So I have a pair of fields, I have a pair of those for each one. Now, I always have at least one approver, so I don't have to do anything special for approver 1 and approval 1 on the first row. It's the second and third row that I need to deal with, okay? So we're going to say approver 2 and approver 3. Okay, let me go in there. Okay, approver 2. We're going to say deny when approvers needed equals 1. And then same thing goes for approval 2. Deny when approvers needed equals 1. Now, what I also need to do is put in the condition which makes it show, okay? So kind of have to be careful with these. You need to make sure you cover all your cases. Okay, so I need to say approver 2. I need it writable when approvers needed equals, well, I can actually kind of do some funky. I can say in 2 or 3 if it's one of these two things. Should work. I'll know real quickly if this is not the correct setting. And I need to do the same thing. Approval 2. Show that to me if approvers needed in. Okay. And we might as well go ahead and do our ones for approver 3. Deny if approvers needed equals 1. Add. Writable if approvers needed not equals 1. Okay. And then approval 3, deny if approvers needed equals. Oh, whoops, I'm messing up. Sorry. Let's do it like this. I'm going to deny if approvers needed not equals 3. And writable, approvers needed equals 3. I need to fix this other one. Deny if approvers needed equals not equals 3. Writable if approvers needed equals 3. All right, so like I say, easy to mess these up. So I want to check all that, see if it's doing what I think it's going to be doing. If it's not, usually you can see what's going on right away. Okay, so I'm going to refresh my form and go to my approval section. Okay, initial state looks good. By default, it's 1 approver, and that's good. I don't want to see that extra stuff, right? So initial state's right. Now the proof. Okay, cool. All right, approver 2 just showed me that section. Approver 3, bam. Remember that dynamic setting that I turned on? It makes it so this happens real time. If I had not enabled that setting, you wouldn't see the real-time updates in the form. So we've got our form kind of starting to do what we wanted to do. It's looking how we want. I may as well go ahead and make a dummy record at this point. Okay, let's see. Pizza party. Be silly with this stuff. I mean, why not? God knows that SharePoint is very boring at times. So, make things interesting. Try to have a fun time. This is just practice data. All right, I need a department. I need a purpose. Okay, that's fine for there. Yeah, let's do our line items. Okay, that's our subform, right? Let's say pizzas. That's office supplies, sure. Why not? Okay, 45. No. It's going to cost a lot more than that. Okay, we'll say 400. $400. Save. Bam, look, our line total is updated real time. That's cool. If you're going to have pizza, let's have ice cream too. Okay. Hardware, of course. Lots of ice cream. Let's get $600 worth of ice cream. Okay. It's fine. We should be able to save our record. Let's make sure that we can save a record. Yay, we can save our record. Okay. What else do I want? Let's do some color choice on some of these. That would sure make things look much better. Oh, I didn't set up my approval ID yet. That's easy. Let's do that. This is why you want to see what happens. This is why you create those test records, because you can't think of all this stuff. Let's go to do the item ID. Okay, approval ID. It's a new item. I'm going to just do approval dot, and then I'm going to seed it because I just like them to be 3 digits. So I'm going to do, it's the numerator function, and then you can give it an argument and give it a seeded value. So I'll start at 1,000 and add. Okay, that'll take care of that. Oh, we said we want to do color choice. I love color choice. Well, I like the icons. I don't usually use the background colors. I like the icons. Okay, all right. We got lots of choice fields. I don't need it for the approval ones because those are just yes or no. I don't think it would really give us value. Maybe it would. We could put a green checkbox. Might look nice. Let's try it. Yeah, let's do a check mark. Sure, why not? Update. All right, that's that one. Icon, same thing. Just showing a little green checkbox if they do this. Okay, icon, check. So we're just converting those regular SharePoint choice fields to color choice fields. That's kind of a good way to go. You can create color choice fields just directly from the screen, but you know, it's kind of good to start that way. But either one's okay. But that's what I like to do. Approval action, that doesn't need a color choice because that value doesn't get maintained. It's just a trigger point, so that doesn't need anything. Approvers needed, that doesn't need anything. Department, yeah, sure, why not? We'll do something for that. Won't hurt. I'm just going to pick, I'm going to pick some arbitrary stuff. Here, let's use the letters. A, C, H. This kind of worked out because I don't have two that have the same first letter. S. Okay, update that. These will make our dashboards look better. Just make it look not so boring. Purpose, sure, why not? I'll do some of these. Let's do, it's just kind of arbitrary. Just give some color things. Okay, there's that. I think I had one more. Purpose, status is that one. That one's really important. Okay, of all the things I just did, this is the one that I for sure wanted to have an icon for. Okay, so for draft, I'll just make it look like that. And then approval, I'll do the green arrow. complete, do checkbox, rejected. Ooh, that definitely needs to be red. Let's do bum, bum, bum. Hopefully there's not a lot that get rejected. Canceled, that could just be like something blue maybe, or a small dash. I spend way too much time on these sometimes. Here, we'll just do that. Okay, there's color choice fields. That should make things look a little bit better. And it's easy and fast. Okay, now what I want to do is kind of start updating my dashboard a little bit. All right, let's modify the view. I'll make another dummy record too after I do this. One thing I always like to do is use the edit button. I always add that. And also, no, I'll just do that. Here, let's see what we want for sequence. We want to make sure approver 1, 2, 3 are in sequence. They are. We can make a requester ahead of them. Summary, purpose, lines. Oh, we have some things by accident on the end. Approval 2 and 3. I need to get rid of those off of there. I'll take those off. We'll move requester up to. Okay, so that's number 3. And then I don't need these two. Let's make status and lines on the end. How about that? Okay, so we'll just pick like an arbitrary number here. And status. You know what? We're gonna group by status, but we can show it to you. Let's do a group by. Okay, this is just SharePoint stuff that I'm doing. Okay, status. I do want it expanded. By default, it's collapsed. As you can imagine, we could have a lot of these things. So we need to, what the group by is going to help us sort of like put them in buckets and categorize them, that type of thing. Let's make another test record. That's what I was going to do. I didn't put any approvers in or anything, so we might like to see what it looks like with approvers in there. So pretty much, you know, it's the case with any kind of tool you're building. The first thing, you got to make sure you sort of can capture all your data. And just from a user interface standpoint, make sure the form kind of looks and acts the way that you want it to. This is before I start kind of building the machinery, if you will. Let's see. All right, I'll just do one line item for this. New VR system for 3,000. Okay, we'll say 3 approvers. Why not? All right, let's see what that one looks like. Okay, so that's what our ID looks like. That's fine. That's what we want. So each successive one will just increment by 1. I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with that functionality. And then I can click for details to get my line item, so that's kind of cool. And then our draft status is going to go on the end. All right, so what else do we want to do? Or what I should say, what do we want to do next? What makes the most sense? We do want to start kind of building out some of this process. Let me see. I don't want to get too complicated too quickly with this thing. Kind of looking at some of my notes right now. Oh, I know what we can do. The title bar. I always do something custom with the title bar. It just makes it look nicer. So in SharePoint forms, normally you don't get that, but like when I'm in the record, I like to have a bar on top. It really just makes for a more polished system. So that's a user interface thing. We can go ahead and do that right now. we're starting to get to the nitty gritty where we're going to have to really make this machinery work. Everything we've done to this point is kind of getting the interface set up, getting all our data points and all that. So, but I have to say, I think we're making pretty good time. I think by the time we get towards the end of this, we really have accomplished quite a bit. We can stay on track here. Okay, so what I'm doing, I really do this in a lot of tools just because I can do it fast and it's adds value, in my opinion. So in the tab settings, I can set a custom title. So what I want to show is some of the summary information, right? So remember that the summary is the single line text field. And then probably I want to show the requester right next to that. And then status, I want it to show at the top of the form. Okay, all I got to do is add those. And I'm going to save. Oh no, I did that kind of backwards. I had my 2-tab system going. I'll switch them. Here, do F5. Okay. So now, all right, that doesn't look very interesting, does it? Okay, we need to put some styling in it. So if you don't remember this, if you go in the developer toolbar, you can see this, but you don't have to do that. I mean, if you just remember this, there's actually a section in the tutorial section in the Infowise site that'll tell you this. There's a class, it's called IW-form title, and that's the reference point so you can do some styling. So you can see, I'm going to be able to make it look nice by referencing that. So I'll do a few different things. I'm going to go in the tab settings and I've got this apply in forms, new editor view. I'm going to use something different for each one. So for new, I don't need to see that because I don't have that yet, right? It's only after I save the form that I have that information, so I'm just going to hide that. So I'll just do display none. Now, this some of you might be able to say, oh, you're doing coding. This is just some simple CSS. Okay. And then for the edit form, that's where I'm going to do the edit and the view form, or we're going to do some fancy stuff. Okay, so it's IW-form title. That's the CSS class. And I'm going to just add a string of formatting. So I want the background color, make that green, give it some padding, 10 pixel, give it a larger font size, 18 pixel, text align, center. What else? I'm probably missing one. Oh, color, white. I think that's got it pretty well. Okay, I gotta click add, and then I gotta do one for view. Now I'm gonna do something kind of interesting. I'm gonna do blue background for the view form. I like this because it makes a really obvious visual indication if somebody gets to the view form. I always get things where people say, I can't edit the fields, and then they're in the view form, and they don't realize it because it looks very similar. Oops. Okay, there's that. And add. Okay. So not a whole lot of work for me to set that up, but it makes it look a lot nicer. There you go. So that's the description. Will test apples. Will Cooper's the requester, and then its current status. Right. So instead of the sea of white that SharePoint gives you, you're adding some visual appeal to the screen. Something looks, really distinguishing it from kind of an out-of-the-box SharePoint form. And what's cool is if I go in the view form, it uses the different CSS. See, that's blue. So there's like a real obvious visual indication between those forms. And I don't want all the stuff on the new form. So if I go to the new form, it is set hidden. So very quickly is able to kind of put in those settings. That pattern I showed you, you can just reuse that on any tool you make. So it's kind of like a really easy trick to have in your toolbox. You know, within 2 minutes, you can add that feature in any tool that you make. So that's pretty cool. Let's see what we're going to do next. Well, one thing we need to do is make sure that the approval can only be given by whoever's in that box. So we're going to do something kind of interesting there. We may as well go ahead and work out that one because we don't want Joe Blow to be able to check the box for approval when it's supposed to be Will Cooper. That's not good, right? So we can do that with advanced column permissions, and we're going to kind of make some changes. It's these approval section. So I'm going to need to do this for approval 1, approval 2, and approval 3. All right. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to say that is read. And I'm going to use this for users and groups in. No. I'm sorry. It's going to be the condition. So what I'm looking at is approver 1. And remember that magical current user? So I'm going to say it's if approver 1 is not equal to, do you remember that current user? Okay, if that's the case, make it read only. If it is approver 1 does equal me, then writable. Okay, and then for approver 2 and approver 3, I do have to factor in the other settings, right? So because I already had some settings around that, so I'm going to need to tweak that a little bit. So in that case, it is always going to be I'm getting confused. We're always going to have our deny permission around how many approvers are needed, but it's, you know, once it shows, we need to adjust that. All right, so we're going to adjust this. Approver 2, deny if approver is not equal to 1. Make it, I need a third rule basically. So I need approver 2 read if approver 2 not equals, I can just type this too, current user. I need a composite condition here too. And approvers needed not equals 1. Okay, and then similar kind of thing for approval 3. I need to make it read only if approvers needed equals 3. And approver 3 not equals current user. This stuff can get a little confusing. Okay, I need to modify some of what I did too. So I'm going to do writable needs to be a composite condition. So I'm going to have to modify that. So I'm going to say approver 3 equals current user. And we'll check it. You know, it's not the end of the world if I don't get this right immediately right out of the gate. You know, I can come back and kind of figure out what I did and just take it one setting at a time. Approver 2, writable. I need a composite condition here. I need to make sure that it's me or the current user. Okay, I always got to click this update link up here. It's kind of confusing in the user interface, but just kind of have to be a little bit slow. You know, make sure you don't go too fast and accidentally click that save button at the bottom. Otherwise, you lose settings. All right, let's try it out. Let's see if this thing does what we think it will do. Okay. Didn't do what I thought it was going to do. Let's do a new form. I may have made a mistake. Okay, so prover one, that should not be writable unless unless my name's in here. So I've done something wrong. So we'll just take it one setting at a time so I can get that right. So what I want to do is go back to these settings and see if I can figure out where I went off the rails. Okay, approver one. Needs to be, if it's not equal to the current user, it's readable. Oh, here we go. Should be writable if approver one equals current user. Update. See, I kind of broke my own rule. I tried to do kind of multiple settings. Probably the better approach here would be to just do with one line item, just deal with approver one first, and then move on to the next one. Okay, that's good. See, that's read only. What's cool is if I do that, notice that updates real time. That's really cool to me. I like that. If I put somebody else, notice I can't access that. So that's kind of neat. All right, let's check line item 2. Okay, it is read only. That's right. And it should go writable. I put my name in. It did. Okay, so I think the first two are correct, but I think our third one's still wrong for some reason. We'll try to figure out why. I don't see it at all. That's not good. It should have been readable. I think I did deny instead by accident, so I'll fix that. Whoops. Come on. I can't type now. Okay. Okay, so something's not right with that. All right, approver 3. Come back to those advanced column permissions. Good thing is once you get the pattern down, generally you're okay. So, all right, that's correct. I should have 3 settings for approver 3. Did I miss that? I guess I did. There should be a write, read, and deny. Okay, so we need one for read for approver 3. It should be readable in the case that approver 3 non equals current user and approvers needed equals 3. Okay, and then I think this other part may be wrong. Okay, deny if it's not equal to 3, writable if approvers needed equals 3, and approver 3 equals current user. That actually looks right to me. I think I just missed a rule, I hope. I'm going to save those settings and then refresh, and we'll see if it works the way that we want it to work. I'll just Control F5 on my new form. Okay, so need 3. There's the field. It's read only now. That's good. It wasn't before. Boom. Now this is accessible. Okay, so what this gives us is when we open up the system, when the approver goes to open the form, they'll be able to access that field, and only they will be able to access that field. So that's good. That's how we want it to work. Okay, so we got through that minefield. We need to kind of start building some machinery, don't we? Let's start getting into that. To this point, we really haven't added any actions or anything. And actually, there's one specific thing I know I'm going to want, which is related to lag, if these are stalled, that type of thing. I'm going to add a field for system date, and we're going to do tracking on that. System date, that'll be a date field. It's not going to show in the UI anywhere. Required, no. It can default to today. No, not in default view. Okay. What was I going to do? Okay, yeah, we need to get into actions. Oops. Okay, I'm going to keep that page there. Email alerts we'll probably save towards the end. Oh, I need to include attachments too. I don't think I put that into my form. Oh, maybe I did. I just haven't attached anything yet. I'll come back to that. Okay, so our first action will be update system date. I'm doing this so I can have an indicator to show how many days it's been since the last approval. And I want this to update on a timer. I want that to happen every night. Okay, so daily, we'll say at 12 a.m. That's fine. I don't need to do anything with the advanced settings. Timer-based conditions need something on the end. I'm just going to do something arbitrary. I'm going to say ID always not equals 0, which means it'll always happen for me. And then I'm going to update this field. This is for tracking. You'll see I need this as a reference point. System date today. Okay. Because that's a timer-based action, I need to make sure it hits all the items on the list for me because I want it to update all the records. So I'm going to say ID not equals 0. I want it to sweep through and hit everything. Okay, that takes care of that action. We want to change stat. We want to do a couple of things. The workflow action. Remember earlier on when I was building, I told you that one was going to be super important. I need to respond to that. There's a couple of things I need to do. I need to respond to it to change the status. Okay, and then the other thing I need to do is do some logging, right? So I had 2 logging fields that I created. One was history, and the other was approval. So history is going to listen for whenever the status changes. Approvals is going to listen for whenever somebody does an approval. Okay, so I'm going to do update history on status change. Okay, this is going to be on the edit, and it's listening for, or excuse me, approval action after change, right? Not equals, remember the default state is none. If it changes from none, then I want to make a little log. This is kind of giving us like a running history of what's going on. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm going to take the history field and I'm going to write a little snippet of code in here to log some information for me. So it's going to, we don't want to erase anything that's already in the history log. So what I want to do is prepend stuff before whatever is already in the field. So it'll just kind of keep a running log. So what I want is some fielded information here, and then we'll do some formatting. So I want to have who did it, which is modified. Looking in the wrong side. There we go. Be modified, modify by, I'm going to switch the order. And I want to prepend, I want history on the end. So I'm going to switch that order. So it's going to say who did it at what time. And I'm going to say status change to what else? Status. There it is. Or actually, I'm going to do something. I'm going to say workflow action. That's what I'm going to put. I'm going to say work or approval action, and then I'm going to put the approval action. It's kind of equivalent. Okay, now I need some formatting. This would look terrible if I just leave it like this. So it's kind of like the title bar. I'm going to put some stuff around this just so that it doesn't look really boring. I'll wrap this in a div. And then we'll do some formatting. I'll give that a span. And then we'll do some stuff. Okay, we'll do style equals. This is just basic CSS. Background, color, black, color white. Okay, just for that part. And then I'll make this next part yellow. I'll make it break on the next line. And then I'll say span, approval action. We're going to test this too, right? That's what we got to do every time. Style, background, color yellow. It'll already be black. I don't need to do anything with that. That's okay. That's good for now. Okay, you see how this is going to work? Every time that changes, it's going to log for me. So if approval action after change equals none, then write to my log. You're just keeping updates of what the users are doing during this approval process. Go ahead and save that. That approval action, we need to reset every time. It's just a trigger point. I don't want them to change to like begin approval or whatever, and then when I open the form, it still says begin approval. That's not how it's supposed to work. So I need to reset it, and that'll always be my last action. So I'm going to say reset approval action, and I just put a note in here because I don't want to accidentally do this before some other action, so I just put that. I'll say approval action always none equals none. Basically, if it's not none, then reset it. Just set it to none. Okay. Now I put it last because I'm going to start adding other actions, and I want to keep bumping this down to the bottom of the list. So it's just a visual reminder to me. And I don't want to just go crazy making a million actions before I actually make sure this stuff works. So I'm going to go to that next. All right. We got to test that, right? So I'll just go into one of my test records. I should test attachments too. There we go. I'll do that. Okay. Oh, cool. There it is. Let me add one more. There it is. Okay, let's go ahead and save that. Now, what's cool is with the email alerts, you do have an option. You can include the attachments on that, so that's good. All right. So there's links to my, you can see that would probably be important in an approval system, ability to put attachments in there. All All right. Well, yeah. We want to do history tracking. Okay, so I have no history at the moment, but I should as soon as you pick that. So there's a couple of things I'm looking for. I'm looking for history tracking, and I'm looking for the approval action to get reset. So that's all it's doing at the moment, but we'll just make sure this works. Okay, so I select begin approval and save. Okay, and then what I want to do is go back in there and make sure that stuff did what I wanted to do. There, see how it's back to none? That's how these workflow action or action or whatever, you need it to work like that. If I hadn't put that last action in, then it would still say begin approval. I don't want it to maintain that. It's just a trigger point for me to do other things. Okay, so that part works. There's our history logging. There's one thing I can think of I want to change in that. I want like a little border around it, but you see how that works? Here, let me make an adjustment on that. This is easy. I can just do, just come in here, basically just highlight all that. And then I can come back into this code editor window. And what I want is to do this. I'm gonna put a little border on it. Just do border, 1 pixel, solid black. Yep. Are you updating? I was thinking about it. Okay, now it did. All right, so we're kind of just getting the ball rolling on some of the machinery that we're going to put in here. I'll do another approval action. I'll say cancel. Just checking my logging right now. I'm just making sure that does what I think it will do. See how there's a border around that now? It just kind of makes it look a little nicer. So Will Cooper at such and such time did this approval action. So this is what we want. I want to see what's going on, kind of helps you track where there's delays and stuff like that. We want a verbose system. We want it to report on these type of things for us. Okay, now kind of a core key action. What is approval action going to do? We want it to change status for us, okay? So by default, the status is draft, but when you do these various things, you need for that to change. Okay, so if I begin approval, we want the status to change to approval. So I'm going to set that up for each of these. So you're making a listener, if you will. That's how you should think of this. And I need one for each of those approval actions that I'm creating. So I'm going to do update list item because I'm going to do update status on, what was it, begin approval? Yep. Begin approval. I'm going to make these stand out. Approval action. Okay, what am I looking for? I'm looking for approval action after change equals begin approval. I don't need to do anything in advanced, and I'm just simply going to change the status to approval. Now I can just do all these settings right now, but better to make sure this is working first. Okay, see how these two tabs are helping me? I don't have to go all the way back out, all the way back in. Okay, so we're going to do begin approval. And what we want to see is the status change. Now, you got to do a refresh. It takes a little bit of time for that to run. That's not what we're looking for. Hold on. There it is. See how the status changed? So we're going to use that same pattern for the other ones too, right? And also notice I did the group by. It moved out of this draft group by, so that's kind of cool. So we're just working our way through our list at this point. So if you do reject, then I think we had a rejected status. Is that right? Let me change the status. So I'll go to list, or I just want to make sure I know my values. Status. Yeah, rejected. Here, I'm going to update this page to use the all items view. Okay. Reject, then you get a rejected status. Okay, so go back to my actions. All right, so I want to follow that pattern, right? Copy and paste, that's always your friend. Okay, approval action, update status on reject. Going to go to my conditions and say approval action after change. Let's reject. Status, rejected. There it is. Notice something I didn't do. See that reset approval action last? I'm going to bump that down. Okay, same as before. Just want to try that out. Make sure it does it. You know, you might have a typo or something. You just want to do this like very incrementally, just to get those checkpoints, those footholds, to make sure you don't want to make 10 different settings and then half of them don't work, because then you kind of have a big mess to clean up. So I'm going to change this one. Say reject. Aha. Okay, that's something else we need to do, right? Rejected reason. Now there's something missing here that I'm going to want to have. What's missing is it should require me to put rejected reason, but it doesn't yet do that. Okay, it takes a second to refresh. Ooh, okay, now it's rejected. Okay, that's good. So my action worked correctly, but it didn't force me to do a rejected reason. That's bad. Okay, we need to make sure that happens. It's what I call conditional validation. So I need to come to the validation settings, and what we need to do is say that rejected reason, I'm going to say length greater than nothing. Rejected reason required exclamation point there. In the case that approval action equals reject. So it should only trigger in that one condition. Okay. There it is. All right. Let's go back to our rejected one. This time it should stop me from saving the form. Pick reject again and try to save. No, sir. Just don't like to spend money. There. Should save now. Okay, you guys see the pieces are starting to come together. That's good. Okay, next, we're just working our way through the approval actions list. Okay, so the next one's canceled, similar to the other ones, really easy to do. And there's our history. See it tracking for me? begin approval, reject. Can you see how that's going to be valuable in these situations where somebody wants to know what happened or why something stalled or who you're waiting for? And it's automatic. The system's just doing that for us, know that we created it. All right. I probably would change the colors. I've never been accused of being good at making things look pretty. So you can just do that however you want. All right, so approval action. This was for cancel. See, once you kind of get the pattern down, it gets easier, right? Because I'm just following the same pattern as what I did on the other one. So it's not hard for me to sort of figure out what I'm doing. I'm following the same pattern. Okay, after change equals cancel. And then we're going to change our status to canceled. Make that one last. Okay, save. All right, let's set this one canceled. Save. Okay, cool. I changed to canceled. That's good. All right, what do we got next? We're going to actually get to the approval machinery here in a second. We for sure want to get into that before we get done with our session. Oh, and by the way, we'll post a recording of this too. I know this has been a long session for everybody. I definitely appreciate your guys' time. So, canceled, complete. Okay, complete works like the other ones. Let's go ahead and get that done too. Probably want some validation on there where basically you can't pick complete unless the approvals are done, but we'll go ahead and just put it in this way for now. Complete. Approval action after change. Change that status. Okay, there's that one. Okay, we'll test that one out. And then we'll get into the actual approval process because that's right at the heart of everything. We're going to make sure that works. All right, so I'm going to go into this one. And I'm going to do complete. Okay, that worked. Okay. All right. Let's get into the part about the approval side. So, if you are in the approval status, then we're going to do email notifications, things like that. We want to make our system reply to that. So, if approver 1 gets checked or approver 2, we know we want to log that. We're going to do something similar for those if this gets set to yes. Okay, so let's go ahead and set up some actions for that. So just the same way we have status tracking, we want to do a similar kind of thing for approvals. Okay, let's actually reuse some of our formatting code from that. That'll help us out a little bit. But basically, we're going to need an action for each of those 3. So what I'll do is go back into actions. And I'll just edit one of these so I can, or I'll grab that snippet of code from history just to make my life a little easier. Just grab that. Don't worry, I'm going to make it look a little bit different. Okay. Update, approval action, approval 1 given. Okay, so the trigger is when this changes, approval 1 after change equals yes. And when that happens, we're going to update that approvals field. So it's like the other history field. So I've got my code snippet that I copy and pasted, which is going to save us some work. Except in this case, I'm prepending to approvals. Okay, and I'm going to do different formatting just to make it look a little different. I'll make the background color lime, I guess. Okay. I'm going to click add. And then I'm going to, actually I need to make the approver 1. We need to say that. Okay, so approval, I need to update this text a little bit. Hold on. I'll say approval, get approval 1 given. Provided, I don't know, not sure what sounds best. I gotta update this. Okay, so that's for approval 1. All right, so let's do the other ones while we're at it. Approval 2 given. Same as before. This time I'm listening to that second one. After change equals yes. Okay. It's this logging field approvals. It's identical to what I just did, and I'm just pasting in that code. Except I'm going to change this to approval 2 given, 2 provided. Okay. See how it was easy the second time to make the second action? You can reuse that work. And then I need one for 3. Okay, listening for the change on approval 3. Paste in my code. Oh, I forgot to change the one part about it. That looks like an extra tab or something in the meeting too. Come on. There it goes. All right, we're going to test it out. All right, got to test it, right? Okay. well, let's change the status back on this one. Change it back to begin approval. Okay, so we're in the approval process. And I will do an approval. Say, yep, I approve. Now, naturally, you want to tie this to an email notification. We're not going to get to it because we're about to hit the end of the clock here, but I think most of you guys are pretty good with email notifications. I think you know how to do that trigger. Okay, so we want to look in here. Should have logging for that. There, Will Cooper at the state time approval one provided. Okay, so there's kind of no way to cheat the system. Like if for some bizarre reason somebody was trying to give approval for somebody else, you couldn't really do that. The system, like I say, it's verbose what we're creating. So everything's right out there in the open, so nobody's gonna do something bad. Here, let's do another one just for fun. I'm approving my request. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I did change it to my name, but the thing is, it wouldn't mean anything. And you have somebody sort of at the end of the chain. So if I put in bogus information or try to cheat the system, there's a whole log there showing exactly what took place. So rather than trying to create these difficult controls to do all this blocking and everything with security and permissions, instead I've got a system where it's reporting on everything that's going on. So if somebody is trying to do something crazy, that's not going to work. So our logging works. Here's another one. I mentioned you don't want people to change the amount of the approval during the approval process. That's ridiculous, right? So really, lines should only be editable when the status is in draft only. So we need to lock that down. And in fact, we should put a little note about that. So that's the next thing I'm going to do because it's really easy for me to do this. So first of all, let's use the fragments functionality to bake in a little instruction in the user interface to tell users about that. So I just come in here and I'm going to add a fragment. I'm going to say lines note. And then I'm going to put in a little formatted thing. Please define expenditures before beginning approval. Lines may be changed only during draft status. Okay, so it's going to give the user a little instruction because otherwise they might not know what's going on, right? They'll try to go in there and change things, and that's not going to work. All right, so I want to give it a background color, make it tan. Ooh, that's too bright. Let's make it blue instead, I guess, and a little bigger. Font size, make it 14. That's fine for now. Well, I need the whole thing centered. Make it span the full row. Okay, there's my lines note. And then I'm going to add it onto the form. I'll put it at the top. So I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to do a column permission to enforce what I just described. Okay, advanced column permissions. This should be pretty easy. Now they can still view the line items. We don't want to remove it from the view. We just need to make it where they can't keep making new ones. So we're going to say we need a pair of rules. All right, so lines should be writable in the case that status is equal to draft, right? And then we need one in there that says that it's read only. Status is not equals draft. And we want to make sure this works. So once I put this stuff in there, I'm going to come back out to my form and see what it looks like. Come on. Okay, so this one right here, it's in approval, which means that I should not have the ability to edit or change lines, right? Oh man, my formatting went crazy. Probably need to adjust my fragments now. But here's the key part. Notice that I can't add new line items. Okay, so that's good. But if I go into my other one that's in draft, I'll be able to. I really threw out the formatting. Hold on. I bet I can fix that. Yikes. I just come into the fragment and I've mucked that up somehow. Let's uncheck this box. Just for now, let's make it left. Okay. Save. The cool thing I like is you can just change settings really quickly. So, I have a background doing .NET development. A lot of times you're wrestling with this code, but because it's configuration based and because I'm doing it right in SharePoint, I can check things so quickly and it just gives me some peace of mind because I know that it worked. I don't have to spend an hour doing something before I can figure out whether it's working. I can say, yes, that's what I wanted to do. And then you just go on to the next thing. So you're able to work on these things in bite-sized pieces. And I really like that. Okay, so because this is in draft, I have the new item option. So that's good. That's what we want. Let's do an email alert real quick, of course, because if you begin approval, then you need to, what do you need to do? You need a notice to go to the first approver. So might as well do one of those. All right, so I go to the approvals list, and I don't know if you guys know this. There's two ways to get here. You can go from the settings screen, or you can just go directly from this ribbon menu. So this is a shortcut in case you weren't aware of that. All right, so yeah, we got to make our content template. Always start there first. I usually want to be real consistent with my naming, so I'll say approvals, begin approval, and then I like to put the name of the tool in parentheses. And I need approver one, right? Approver one, such and such, please approve. And then what? The name of the request, right? It was summary. That's what we use. So add that to the subject. And then the person who requested it. Okay, and then in here, we'll say, whoops. Oh, no. I didn't mean to do that. I meant to body. Oh, no. Oh, there it is. Okay, has requested approval for summary. Please access the item here. I can include attachments if I want to. That's good. Remember how we attached files to the approval record? You can actually have those go out in the email. Usually I just use the edit item link. And this is really tiny and plain, so we want to change that. Okay, so we'll go with 14 point. I like to highlight these, so I'll make a background color on that. I'll make that like that. Make that blue. All right, that's my content type. So my content type is called approvals, begin approval. And then now I need to define the rule, which will trigger when it's going to go out. So I'm going to call it the same thing up here. Current site, and this needs to go to, I'm going to blind copy myself. I recommend you do the same when you make these tools. It's going to go to the approver one. and copy to the requester. Why not? All right, that all looks good. On modify, what we're looking for is that approval action, right? So it's when approval action after change equals begin approval. And down here, I said it's on modify, so I need to just pick that content template I made, hit create. All right, so there's an email template. All right, guys, we've hit 2 hours. I've held you for a lot of your day. I really hope you guys got something good out of this. I definitely am interested in your feedback or ideas about this. We're doing these sessions once a month, and it's the same concept each time. Basically, we want to define a tool that we want to create and see how far we can get with it within a couple hours. I know that a lot of you folks have some really neat ideas and things you've discovered with Infowise. I'd love to hear about that. So let us know what you thought. Hopefully you found this useful. Hopefully there are parts of this that you can use in your own systems. If you do have some feedback, drop me an email to willc@infowisesolutions.com. That's WILLC at infowisesolutions.com. Thanks for joining us on this Friday, and thanks for being great Infowise customers. And like I say, we'll do another workshop next month, and we will post a recording of this on our website later. So thanks again. I hope everybody has a great day.